Okay. All right. Let's just make sure we're live here and then we'll kick in. Happy Sunday, Sunday morning. How are you? Hope you're wonderful. Let's see. Rockfin, where are you at? YouTube is awake already. Okay, YouTube, good timing. Good job. Good job. Good job to the YouTube Rockfin. There's Rockfin. Rockfin was a little slower today. And Twitter is good. All right. What's up, everybody? Happy Sunday. Happy Mother's Day to all those mothers out there. Happy Mother's Day. And welcome to Expatriate. This is our first episode. This is the first series under the Get Your News On with Ron banner. And this series is all about different ways to leave the United States, the different ways that are out there as far as visas, passports, citizenship by descent. That's all the stuff we're going to be talking about. And today is our pilot episode. This is the first one. And few quick things as we get into it. First of all, I got a big response when I announced I was going to do this. A lot of it was positive, some of it was not. That's how things go. Um, and that being said, the reason I bring that up right now, my plan is to do this kind of under the Get Your News On with Ron banner. Like this will be, you can get this same place you get Your News On with Ron. If you get it as a podcast or if you watch it live or you get it as a video, it'll still be in all the same places. If this if this gets bigger, though, I may need to consider making this its own podcast. I don't plan on doing that right now at this particular moment, but we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens with all this. But as of right now, this is going to be under the Get Your News On with Ron banner, and at some point, I might give it its own theme song. We'll see. But as of right now, it's just kind of going to be under the Get Your News On with Ron banner. So let's get started. This is the pilot episode. And this is kind of a weird way to start, but I feel like this is an important way to start. I'm going to tell you what this series is not going to be. This series is not going to be me just giving diatribes about the United States. That's not what I'm going to do here. There are plenty, for those of you who know Get Your News On with Ron and know the other stuff I do, there is plenty of content where we talk about what's going on in the world. This particular show is about visas, passports, different ways to leave the country, basically. And if you're here, you already have your reasons for being here. Either you are thinking about it for family reasons or for personal reasons or medical reasons, or maybe you just want a new adventure, or again, maybe you just want to be prepared. Maybe you're like, I don't want to leave, but if things get really bad and I have to, I want to be prepared. I mean, like I said in the trailer, that's the category I'm in. I love my neighborhood. I don't want to leave my neighborhood, but I want to be prepared in case, in case it's necessary. And I'll be talking in more detail about that in a second here. But I just want to say, this show is not just going to be a diatribe about the United States. The only time we're going to talk about what's going on in the United States in this particular series is when it's applicable to the topic we're talking about, which will happen. In fact, it's going to happen some today. But just so you know, it's going to be the exception, not the rule. We're only going to talk about what's going on in the United States when it's pertinent to the topic. So that's something this show is not going to be. Another thing I'm going to mention here in our pilot episode. This is my first time ever as a person where I'm doing an instructional type podcast. I've never done anything like this before. I've done storytelling podcasts. I've written for them and participated in them. I've done plenty of comedic commentary, political commentary, whatever you want to call it. I've done plenty of that. I've done sketches, but I've never done more of an instructional type, this is some stuff that's out there that I've been researching podcast. This is my first time ever doing that type of podcast. So there's going to be a learning curve here, and I'm going to learn as I go. And I appreciate you getting on board with this journey with me. And please do share your feedback. I got a lot of feedback when I announced I was going to do this. So I hope you guys will keep in touch. And the best way is write me, go to ronplacone.com, email me there. That's the best way to get a hold of me. And let me know your feedback. Because again, this is a new genre for me. Very much so. This series is a totally new genre for me. And I'm just kind of learning as I go, folks. And that being said, another thing I need to mention, I am not an expert in immigration law or any law for that matter. I am not a lawyer. I am not a visa expert. I am not employed in a formal capacity in any of those areas. I am not a citizenship expert. I am not an expert in any of those things, nor do I hold any type of position in any of those areas. I am just a dude who has been researching some of this stuff and am happy to share what I know and am happy to talk about it. That's all. So, a lot of the stuff I share, I will make these resources very available. I will put resources in all the show notes, whether it be the podcast or on YouTube, Rockfin, Twitter, whatever it may be. So, the resources that we're going to share here will be easily available. But please just kind of use this as a jumping off point to dive further elsewhere. So, that's the other thing I needed to mention. And what can you expect on this show? Again, we're going to be talking about different types of passports, different types of visas, different types of rules in different countries, and citizenship by descent, different types of citizenships, and just how it works and the different ways that are out there to leave the country and the different factors at play. And by the way, again, feel free to email me if there's certain things that you want to see covered. Again, ronplacone.com, email me if there's something. Hey, Ron, I really want you to do a big deep dive into Canada. I really want you to do a big deep dive into retiring in Ecuador, whatever it may be. Drop me a line and give me some suggestions. I will be having guests on this show who have already expatriated. I will be having guests on this show who may be experts in different fields, like maybe taxes, stuff like that. That's not going to happen right away. I'm going to kind of get my bearings first and kind of get through the first few episodes of this and kind of build this show. But as it goes on, I will be having guests. Some people reached out to me and wanted to be guests. There's some people, hey, Ron, I expatriated. Hey, Ron, I'm an expert in this type of taxation. Hey, Ron, and I plan on eventually having all those people. So there's going to be a lot of very interesting and pertinent information on this show. So I really look forward, or on this series, rather. I guess technically it's a series, not a show, right? As of right now, it's a series, not a show. So I look forward to diving into all of that with you. So I think those are all the disclaimers that I had to have for the pilot. I think we covered it. So today's episode, the pilot episode, is called Factors to Consider. So I just kind of want to go through some of the things that you are going to face, especially here in the contemporary United States, when you're exploring the potential of this decision, regardless of how far you are. Again, maybe you're just trying to see what your options might be. Maybe you're just kind of like, gee, I hope I never have to act on this, but I want to be prepared if I do, and I want to know what my options are. Maybe you're further along and you're thinking, I have my bags packed and want to get the hell out. Whatever your situation is, no judgment here either way. These are all the factors you're going to consider. And the first thing I'm going to bring up, and I got some of this when I dropped the trailer, and I knew I would, but the whole, it's cowardly if you leave. It is cowardly to leave the United States. You are a coward. How dare you leave or consider leaving? I've heard this many times. We all have. I don't get it. I mean, people directed it at me, which is, it's kind of funny. Again, literally in the trailer, I said, I don't want to leave. I just want to be prepared if it ever comes down to that. I don't plan on leaving. I don't want to. But if it ever comes down to it, I want to be prepared. And even you're a coward for preparing. But first of all, there's a number of reasons why this is absolutely ridiculous. First of all, you have no idea what people's situations are. You have no idea. And I don't see how anybody could call someone a coward if maybe they have medication that they need and they can't afford it. Like maybe that medication is $400 a month in the United States. And in somewhere like Canada or Mexico or wherever, it's $10. And this person, they can't afford their medicine. They're struggling to survive. They're rationing their medicine. They know if they don't figure something out soon, they're going to die. You would call that person a coward for trying to get out so they can frickin' live? You think that person has some obligation to stay? What's wrong with you? Also, another factor at play here, people with families, people with children. And let me say this to anyone who's been hearing this and you have kids, there is nothing less cowardly than doing what you feel you need to do to make sure your child has a better life. There is nothing less cowardly than that. So if you have kids and you've come to the conclusion, I can give them a better life in a different country, and I'm going to do everything I can to get to that different country for them. That is one of the least cowardly things I can think of in the world. Doing what you have to do to give your kid a better life. And that's part of the reason I personally started researching all this. Because my wife and I had a conversation when we talked about kids. And we both decided, that we're undecided, actually. But we said, maybe we might want kids someday. We might want to have a family beyond just the fur babies. And the next conversation we had, and I was very firm on this. I said, I don't, if we were to have children, I don't want to raise them in the United States. And it breaks my heart that I feel that way. But I do. If my wife walked through our front door and said, I want to have kids, I'd say, okay. And I would start packing. If my wife and I decide on kids, they will not live in the United States. Unless things change, unless things very drastically change. Because I don't want them to go through active shooter drills in school. I don't want them to be around legalized murderous gangs that we call law and order. I don't want them to grow up around some of the most severe war propaganda in the world. I don't want them to have to go into crippling amounts of debt for the rest of their life if they want to go to college. I don't want that for them. And I'm not judging anybody who raises kids in the United States because there are a ton of factors. There are so many factors, people's jobs, people's lives, family. I get all that. I'm not judging anyone else. I'm just saying from my perspective, I would do everything I could to make sure that that child lived in a different country. And that's okay. If you feel that way too, that is okay. There's nothing cowardly about wanting to do what's best for your children. So, the people who call, oh, it's cowardly. If you look, there's a lot of Irish Americans in the United States because at one point there was a big old famine in Ireland. And I'd be willing to bet you that there were people at the time who said, I'm not going to leave. That's cowardly. And they stayed and they probably starved to death. One could argue they were very brave. One could also argue they were very foolish. So look, I'm all about staying and fighting, and as long as I'm here, that's what I plan to do. But if there's other factors at play, my loyalty is to my household, not to some pile of dirt and rocks that I was born on. My loyalty is to my household. And I can't imagine being any other way. I can't imagine oh no, my loyalty is to America. The people that say that, the people who call other people cowards, who are considering leaving or just, trying to have the right information so that if they have to act, they know what to do, or people who want a better life for their children, The people who are calling them cowards, how are you any different than the people who like, "Oh, America protecting our freedom. I support all the wars because it's all about freedom." How are you any different? You're the same as those people. You're just the other end of it. You know what I mean? Like you're just the other end because you have some chauvinistic, nationalistic, bizarre attachment to the United States. You're the exact same. So that right there should dismiss that whole it's cowardly. No, it isn't. No, you don't know other people's circumstance. Somebody said this. This is, and I don't want to get too far into the weeds here. Again, this isn't what the focus of this show is. But someone said that it's a quote liberal thing to do to consider leaving, which I don't. And of course, what they were implying was that like you're not a real lefty if you're if you're considering real lefties are going to stay because America. Okay. I thought liberals were the people who were back at brunch because they're happy Joe Biden's in office. Which one is it? Which one is it? Anyway, all right. So that's my take there. Um all right, another factor that a lot of people talk about that is something to consider, I can't afford it. It costs money to leave the country. Now, as we do this series, you're going to find out there's a lot of different ways. There's a lot of different things out there. Some of them, of course, are more affordable than others, but you might be surprised. It may be more affordable than you realize, or it might be less. Who knows? But you may be surprised what all is out there. Now, one thing that I think is certain is yes, it costs money to leave the country. It costs money to move anywhere. I don't think anyone denies that. That is a costly endeavor. So, yes, it is not free. Sure. What is free, though, it is just preparing and finding out what's out there. Like this podcast is free to you. They're looking up resources online, doing your due diligence. That doesn't cost money. That costs you time, but it doesn't cost you money. So that's all out there, first of all. And second of all, the other thing I say to that, like it costs money to leave. Yes, it does. But one thing you need to consider, it costs money to stay. And when you look at the direction the United States is going in when it comes to living wages, when it comes to rent, when it comes to just the cost of existing, and then you look at something like healthcare, you have to consider all of that too. And, using myself as an example, I'm a self-employed person. I'm a comedian. I have seen on more than one occasion people in my industry who, by the way, are successful comedians who when I was starting out, I looked up to. And as they got a little older, maybe something happened and they were either underinsured or uninsured. And now they're spending their life dependent on a GoFundMe account. That can happen. That can happen to anyone. And if you're in a vulnerable situation where you're either underinsured or uninsured, that's something you need to really consider. And in other countries where they have universal health care, you won't end up like that. I mean, if something happens and you get sick, it's going to be a struggle no matter where you're at. I'm not denying that. But, it's not going to be as severe as, okay, I'm dependent on a GoFundMe account now, or I'm going to die. So those are factors to consider. Yeah, it costs money to leave. It costs money to stay too, though. Again, do you have kids? Do you want them to go to college? What's tuition going to cost? Do you want to buy a house? What's that going to cost where you're at versus somewhere else? And, another thing I'll say, look, there is no utopia. All right. If you are trying to leave the US and you're looking for utopia, you're going to be looking for the rest of your life. That doesn't exist. Every country, everywhere has their problems. Everywhere. Nowhere's perfect. But yeah, there's some places out there that do, generally speaking, offer a way higher quality of life than the United States does. And there are certain problems and issues that happen in the United States that just straight up they don't happen in other countries, or at least nowhere near to the degree that they happen here. You don't see people going bankrupt over medical bills in England or Canada or Scotland. You don't see that. You don't see people going into crippling amounts of debt if they want to go to college in a lot of other countries. You don't see police murdering people systemically in a lot of other countries. So, those are all factors to consider. And I think that, as you go forward, you kind of have to keep those things in mind. That, yes, it's not free. But hey, in the words of the Clash, should I stay or should I go? There's a cost to go, there's a cost to stay. And, oh, it's cowardly. No, it isn't. Just no, it isn't. There's nothing, especially if kids are in the picture, especially if kids are in the picture. Please get that out of your head. And anyone who trolls you or anyone who judges you, screw them. They don't know anything about you. And it's like, you see these. I mean, what do you think? Like, what are you gonna say? Like, you have a kid, and you say, "Hey, Junior, sorry, you have to go into crippling amounts of student loan debt for the rest of your life, but we didn't leave this country when we had the chance because Twitter edgelord 72 said it'd be cowardly." Some anonymous person on the internet, there's a good chance they haven't left their basement in 20 years. They can talk a big game behind a keyboard about how they're going to fight fascism. They said it'd be cowardly to leave, so I didn't do what was necessary to give you a better life. So just get that stuff out of your head. Get that stuff out of your head and think about the real factors. What do I want to do? Where do I want to go? How would I do it? Think about family. Think about your household. Think about those near and dear to you. So that's why this podcast exists. That's why this show exists. This show exists for people who want to learn more about this sort of thing, for people who may be in a situation where they need to consider these things. These are the different things that are out there. And we're going to be diving into D7 visas. We're going to be diving into what it means to be a digital nomad. We're going to be diving into particular rules with Canada, Mexico, the EU. We're going to be diving into citizenship by descent. We're going to be doing all that. And I really look forward to this. And again, please send me your suggestions. Go to romplacone.com and send me your suggestions. Are there any countries you want me to focus on? Do you have questions about taxation? And again, we're going to talk to people that are more knowledgeable in those fields. Again, I'm not a text expert. I'm not a texting expert, actually. I am at best okay at texting. I am really not that good at it. I have a buddy. He's like a poet with that. He texts me books. His texts are just like, we have a running joke now. He'll be like, "Hey, did you get my text?" And I joke back and I say, "Hey, I'm almost done reading your script." His texts are so freaking long. And eventually, he's like, "Yeah, Ron, with you, I have to." He texts me and my wife at the same time because he goes, "She'll get through it quicker than Ron will." So anyway, I'm not a text expert. I'm also not a tax expert. I'm not. So we're going to be bringing on people that know more about that stuff as time goes on. But in the meantime, we're going to be talking about some of the research I have done. That's how we're going to start this show. some of the research I've done into different visas and stuff like that, and citizenship by descent. And we'll be diving more into that in the next episode. So thank you for being here. This has been Expatriate. This has been our first episode. And I think we'll probably start doing this once a month. This will probably be a once a month thing to start, and then we'll take it from there. I mean, if it grows a lot, then we'll up it if we need to make it its own podcast. But for right now, it's going to be series under the Get Your News on Thrawn banner once a month. So I'll be back next month with another episode. But this has been our pilot. And tour dates, I got them. I'll announce tour dates before we sign off here. First of all, Reykjavik, Iceland. I will be at your Fringe Festival. And by the way, if anyone's expatriated to Iceland, get in touch with me and I'll talk to you. And that'll be part of this series. But Iceland, I'll be coming at you. That festival runs June 24th through July 3rd. I will have my exact show details very soon, and I'll be announcing them. Venue information, ticket information, stuff like that. But I will be part of that festival, so I'll see you in Reykjavik. And Northwest, Graham Elwood and I have some tour dates in the Northwest. July 28th, Portland, Oregon. July 29th, Seattle. July 30th, Vancouver, British Columbia. Get your tickets at ronplacone.com. That's ronplacone.com. Grab those tickets. We'll be back at you next month with another episode of Expatriate. In the meantime, you know the drill. Lucy, she says meow, and I say peace, love, and a general strike.